Hello and welcome to the Project Good podcast. I'm your host, Annmarie Hylton. Project Good is a social impact podcast interviewing experts and advocates about the pressing problems that we face globally. The Project Good podcast is brought to you by Project Good Work. The goal of this podcast is to inspire people and organizations to develop a mindset that can move others to positive action regarding the complex social issues facing people and the planet. For June, we're focused on helping society flourish. The overall feeling on the planet is a mix of hope and despair, awe and fear, connection and alienation. While there is also a movement for many people to feel a sense of peace and connection to the earth, there's also widespread concern about environmental issues, social inequalities, and the perceived worsening of the world. The underlying sentiment is there's an anticipation for change and personal accountability. The DeNicola Family Foundation is a private charitable foundation rooted in the passion for advancing world health, cultural diplomacy, humanitarian recognition, and conservation. An extension of Cosmo DeNicola Companies, a privately held company with a diverse portfolio of businesses ranging from technology, publishing, professional sports, and entertainment. The organization's mission is to continue its legacy of doing good while recognizing those who are equally committed to core humanitarian efforts. The organization's founding principle is caring is an action, not just an emotion. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Morgan DeNicola, who's the executive director of the DeNicola Family Foundation. The foundation incorporates the four passions of world health, humanitarian recognitions, conservation, and cultural diplomacy. Morgan recognizes the importance of doing good while also recognizing those who are equally committed. Morgan is the vice chairman of the Humpty Dumpty Institute, or HDI, in New York. HDI works around the world to inform and foster dialogue amongst critical stakeholders on key global issues. They do this through their programs with the U.S. Congress, the U.S. Department of State, United Nations, and the international embassies, engaging young people, supporting cultural diplomacy, and working on humanitarian programs. During her time, she works along with the United Nations. She has led trips to Beijing, China, in the Taipei Global Civilization Forum, and to Malawi, where the level of poverty she saw there kicked off a fundraising initiative called Cosmo Care's Mobile Healthcare Van. The van services remote villages around Lesotho, Africa. Recently, Morgan led a congressional delegation in Rwanda. Let's get into the interview. Morgan DeNicola has been a team member of the Steinberg-DeNicola Humanitarian Award, which recognizes members of the NFL for the work they do in their communities. Morgan has a degree in elementary education from Long Island University C.W. Post and is an active board member of the Elwood Zoo, located in Norristown, Pennsylvania. The zoo is dedicated to providing the community with a varied learned experiences that encourage people to play an active role in wildlife and environmental conservation activities. Welcome, Morgan.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Hi, I am very excited for this conversation and to talk about all the wonderful things that you are doing in the world and also, of course, your organization. And before we get in there to the questions and dive into the interview, though, I always like to get to know the heart of the person and what made them who they are. And so my question for you is, throughout all your experiences that you've had in your life, and I know it might seem like, oh, this is a lot to think about, what do you feel is the most important thing you have learned about yourself?
That you have to climb out of your comfort zone to discover all of the things that you're capable of doing.
Wow. Okay. So do you think, I'm just assuming, I guess, that you had to go through a transformation within yourself that I guess maybe in, previous years or younger years that maybe you questioned yourself. Is that, I guess, how you got to that answer?
Yeah. Growing up, I was kind of a quiet, shy kid until high school. And I have dyslexia, so I found being in school to be kind of difficult. And I started to have a lot of that self-doubt through high school and into college that I was only capable of so much. And it wasn't until I started putting myself into really testing what I was able to do and around a lot more individuals that encouraged you to try harder and push harder, that I was really able to discover that I could contribute a lot more to the world around me, and that nervousness that I felt on a regular basis, you kind of have to push through, and you can be so much more than that little doubtful voice in the back of your head. So it was definitely, there were a lot of growing pains. I think more in like, I a little later in life for me. So it was probably, I want to say late 20s, mid to mid 30s was a lot of, you know what, let me just really try to do things that I'm not sure I'm capable of doing. And through the course of doing those things, it almost became a little addicting. Like, okay, you know what? That was awesome. I actually enjoyed challenging myself. Let me try harder and harder and doing more and more unique things, I'd like to say.
Wow. And that's like perfect then for the work that you do, because, you know, when you get into humanitarian work or charitable work, there's no, I guess I would say there's no straight path.
Definitely.
And what I mean by that, just to explain myself, is there's so many factors that are sometimes not accounted for that come up. And then as humans, we all know, as they say, life is lifing.
Yes.
So that is, I guess, a great personal perspective to go in with that, knowing that you are up for taking on challenges that you may have never thought of taking on. And so I guess the next question I have is, was it your idea then to get into charitable work, or how did you start into your career?
My family was always charitable. They were always giving people. So growing up, I always saw them helping people, family members, coworkers. So the idea of supporting my community and being active in helping those that I could, I just watched my parents doing that from a very young age. And, but we were in business, you know, our family owned so many different businesses. And it wasn't until I took that first trip to Malawi to visit an orphanage that I came back realizing that all the things that I was fearful of or sad about, you come back with a completely different perspective when you see some trials of other individuals. And when I came back, I decided I needed to go into a career that was service for others. And I didn't quite know what that meant at the time. And it wasn't until I had some really great conversations with my family that they realized that I should be in like a charitable and philanthropic world. So that's how we formed our first small charitable organization, which started out as Cosmo Cares. My dad's name's Cosmo. It was catchy. I liked it. And from there, we kind of were learning together as a family. And once I really got the hang of it and enjoyed it and got my hands dirty, I like to say, getting involved in everything, we were able to, through the success of the businesses, form our family foundation. And it's been a few years, and I continue to learn, continue to grow. And our foundation has really, really become the center of not only my work life, but it has become really who I am. And I'm always thinking about it, always thinking about how to help people. And it's a big part of my life and our family's lives.
Wow. You know, that is, I guess that's inspiring, because, you know, the thing is, you could went two directions, as being that it was already, I guess, ingrained in a way that your family gives. But it's also amazing, too, because being when you have a family that has, a family of, I'll just say a business family, and, you know, a lot of businesses, they give, but usually, you know, they're like, they give to a few local organizations. But your family decided to take it to the next level and go international, which is, I guess it takes a different type of heart to do that, or a different type of perspective? Because most people are just thinking, okay, we'll fix the things around here, meaning like, our local community, our neighborhood, our local country. But then wanting to really, I guess, see things from a whole different perspective that isn't something that naturally, I guess, occurs unless that's something that is really on, I guess you would say, your whole family's heart a bit to take it to the next level. Because there are, lots of people that have, that are in charities, but for them to get a global perspective is not always so common. So that's amazing. And so now that you've had more of a global perspective when it comes to not only charity, but would you say, and I'm sure you encounter a lot of, other foundations and charities, would you say that you feel that there is a mindset change that needs to happen when it comes to philanthropy?
Yes, definitely. I think that we need to, the people who are in the philanthropic world need to communicate a little bit more, I think, to the worlds around them about not only the necessary steps into being philanthropic, but more that being in philanthropy, it's not money. I think a lot of people always go to, well, I can't be involved in a lot of this stuff. I don't have money. And I think that's the job of the people who head up a lot of these organizations to say, no, it's beyond money. It's time, it's creative thinking, it's connections, and engagement. Philanthropy is so much more than money. And I think that's where there's kind of a disconnect in the engagement of like individuals. You've seen the decline in individual donors since 2016, and it's gone a little bit more like corporate and corporate sponsorships. And I think that's because there's some fear around, well, I don't have the money to donate. And I think if we kind of get back to the encouragement of, no, it's so much more than that. It's being engaged in your communities, and it's helping the people that are heading up with ideas, that we'd get more engagement with the different groups and worlds around us. And I think that's kind of the next big movement that we should have in the philanthropic world, is kind of pushing more of that perspective.
Yes, because I think not to be, but I think we've tried the throwing money at the problems thing, but it doesn't solve the real issues. For example, I'm just going to take one that is a huge problem that I don't know if we'll ever solve, is plastics in the ocean, right? And I'm taking that because that is, where it's hard to keep track, because the ocean is a vast place, and not to be funny, but I guess funny, and the tides are always changing. And, so the plastic, moves. So it's not easy to, we cleaned it all up and it's done. Right. And so we could throw money at it, send a whole bunch of boats, divers. But then, lo and behold, we have, a whole bunch of plastic we find hidden under, some coral reef rocks or something of that sort. And so, yes, we can do yes, pick up your trash, throw it away, do all of those things. But the real problem has to start, how did the trash get there?
Yes.
And that is the thing, sort of like what I was saying in the intro, is I think we're in the time of accountability. And I don't want to sound so pessimistic as one of my guests said, but we're kind of on a ticking clock if we continue the same way. And I think right now it's the period of when people are coming to the conclusion, like, we either have to do radical change and accountability, or we have to do both. I think, I would say it's a time of accountability. This is just my thoughts. I guess, what would you say if you were going to define this period that you've been seeing around the world when it comes to, I guess, making a difference and change?
Oh, it's definitely accountability. I feel like I've said that on so many of these guest podcasts that I do. We like to point fingers at other people or groups, or, well, this person's doing this, so why should I do that? And we very rarely reflect on what we are doing. And I think that there definitely needs to be that, well, what am I doing? And what I think we also need to make it, this is going to sound a little weird too, but like make it simple for people to make these changes. So you have to like create roadmaps. Okay, if you're buying a lot of things that have plastic, here are simplistic steps that you can take to maybe buy less plastic or be aware of it, and start kind of bringing it to people's attention in a way that makes it easier to just solve. Because I think we have so many problems that are just thrown at us that you stand there and you get overwhelmed and you're like, how can I resolve any of this? You get overwhelmed. And I think when you are able to present the issue, but also several as simple as you can make it solutions, it's a lot easier for people to have that accountability and make those little changes. And I know there are a lot of companies that are out there that are trying to make like deodorants that come in cardboard, and detergent sheets rather than coming in detergent. And so I think there are people that are making these changes to at least allow the consumer to have options. And now I think that we need to like continue to just publicize those solutions a little bit more and encourage that self-reflection without judgment.
Yes, and I think you just said your last line there, without judgment. I think that's the biggest thing that has, at least what I've seen, is that nobody wants the finger pointed at them, and they're like, well, I didn't do this and this and this and this. Mm-hmm. And it's as we see on the news, I've had to go to a point of limiting myself how much news. It's a squabble fest.
Yes.
And as we squabble, things are not necessarily getting better. And then also, it's demotivating to a lot of people. And so I guess when we start to look at all the different types of projects and things that you've been part of, one of the things that I think is just great and impressive about you is that you've been part of the Humpty Dumpty Institute, or HDI. And so you've gotten to see, I guess, a whole bunch of different perspectives around the world, because I think one of the things that, here in the U.S., we tend to have tunnel vision and maybe get lost and not really know the real problems, I guess. So let's speak a little bit about your experience, I guess, with the Institute, and I guess how it's helped you with your work in the foundation.
Yeah, so Humpty Dumpty, I joined as my father actually joined it first, and he was the one that introduced me to the work that they were doing. And he goes, I just think that this is the way you think. I feel like you just love what's going on over here. So HDI was awesome and allowed me to attend the parts of meetings and programs that I was able to kind of learn to see if it was a fit for me to be a part of the things that they were doing. And I instantly fell in love, because their ability to try to help global issues, in my opinion, is unmatched, with their way of thinking and trying to connect, and really just trying to give everybody an opportunity to share their cultures, share their perspectives. And it really changed my life because, again, like you said, when you are only exposed to one culture or one way of thinking, I like to say you don't really know yourself, because how can you say you don't like this, or can you say you don't believe this or don't want to be a part of this if you haven't experienced all these things? Where us as humans are ever growing, ever evolving, depending on our experiences. So the more things you expose yourself to, the more you're able to learn about yourself and the world around you, and you can be a more active problem solver. I think that's one of the great things that the HDI does, is we educate on if you have one issue in one part of the world and the same issue in another part of the world, to actually have these conversations of comparing solutions and comparing ideas and working together, it brings new thoughts and new experiences to the table. And I think that you become almost addicted to that because you continue to learn, and you learn that truth is more complicated and perspectives are so different. So your reality becomes like a little bit more abstract, or it changes depending on where you go in the world. And to me, that's fun and exciting. It's not a scary thing. HDI has changed the way I deal with everything, from my personal relationships to my professional relationships, and really the way I look at every problem that I encounter.
Wow. The thing that, that the line that you said is that, you learn about yourself, and then in order to learn about yourself, and then you can change the perspective of other people and also change the world. And I think that it was profound to me when you said that, because, and I'm paraphrasing, that I never thought about change as self-discovery. But if we want to get, I guess, even a little woo-woo, or maybe not woo-woo, depending on, your belief system, is that obviously we're all connected in the fact that we're all on this crazy ball called Earth. But there's a deeper connection, of course, that we are each citizens of humanity. And within that, we are more of the same person than we are, I guess, different. And so when you learn about yourself, then you are actually understanding all the humans in a certain perspective. So I thought that was really profound when you said that, because it took me to a deeper level, because it became the key of why people should be motivated to be part of any philanthropic efforts, but also change in itself, because it's really about learning about who you are. So if that's not a motivation for people, I don't know what else is. So that was a profound statement that you said, that I had never thought about change in that way, is that it really is about learning about yourself in order to make things better for the whole, because we are part of that whole. So yeah, so that, I think that is just an amazing viewpoint that you have pulled from your experience of working with the Institute. And so I guess the other things, you've gotten to have, a wonderful opportunity. First of all, I have to say, even before jumping in that, I don't know your dad personally, but your dad seems like he is, not only, of course, a go-getter, but I guess amazing in that he has such a large perspective. And just like an aside, I guess, what do you think contributed to him having the perspective that he does, that he can help then instill that in you?
I think two things. He comes from an immigrant background. His family is from Italy. So he has that attachment to Italian culture as well as U.S. culture. But he's been in so many different businesses, from software, healthcare, to sports and entertainment, that he's met so many different people from different walks of life, that he's been curious and he's talked to and he's been open with all over, starting just in the United States and all walks of life, and then growing globally to meeting so many people overseas, that again, the more you open up your heart, your door, and listen to people who are different than you can't help but start to take on different thought processes and different perspectives. So I watched, as I was older, I didn't notice when I was younger, but as I was older, I watched my father do this, and as well as my mother, meeting so many different people. And never being closed off to anything that they said or their perspectives or their life story, but really kind of embracing listening to those experiences. And even through that, he became a more successful businessman because he was able to do that and get those new perspectives and hear these different voices. So it just came very naturally for me as well as my brother to see this and see the success that happens in your personal and your professional life by opening yourself up to hearing other people and allowing them to be a part of your life. So we just naturally started doing the same thing. And we've really, really been lucky to meet so many incredible people that we've been able to learn from.
And I have to say that is the statement that we need right now, is about being open to meeting people and to learning from people, because we are in the time where everybody's, building walls. And so that is something that everybody needs to learn right now, that we have to, work on breaking down these walls. Because I'm sure, just like I'm sure you have concerns about what you see that's going on. I guess here in the U.S., especially one of the recent things that happened, a lot of organizations went through like a freeze funding period, and it's, I guess disheartening to see that, I guess it always was there, but that people not having the global awareness that, you were lucky to have, both because you had a parent that had already that perspective, being, growing up in an immigrant family, but also just that was already on their heart. Because I think, that has to already be in somebody's heart, even if sometimes you're an immigrant, that's not something you naturally lean towards. A lot of times, I myself came from immigrant family and immigrant myself. It's not something necessarily that just happens for all immigrants, because a lot of people are just trying to fit in. And so they shy away from that kind of stuff because they're just like, I just want to be, part of this new thing that I joined. I don't have time to think about, bigger perspectives. So yes. I guess my next question that I have for you is that I want to kind of dive a little bit deeper and find out a little bit about the projects that you're doing in your foundation. And I guess if you want to tell me about the favorite one that you've gotten to be part of or head up.
Ooh, a favorite's going to be tough. I really like, we're still working on, speaking about being in touch with our immigrant heritage, we are building a community center in Italy, in the tiny, tiny town that my grandfather grew up in. And I love being a part of this because we were able to see the needs of our ancestral hometown and be able to help them, because it's a very small town in the mountains. So to be able to help them is just near and dear to my heart. But I think the biggest thing that I am excited about isn't something that's giant. It's actually kind of small. And we started to give awards to young children that are giving back to their communities to try to continue to recognize and amplify the necessities of getting young kids to want to be giving back and philanthropic and charitable. So I actually love this because I have met some young kids in grade school that it's just that it's instilled in them that they want to help either their classmates, or they're raising money or finding canned goods for pantry programs, but really are giving it their all for no other reason than that's what they want to do. So I really love recognizing these kids, and, we give them an award as well as a little financial contribution to whatever it is that they're doing to try to encourage them to keep going. So that is one that I love, because you can see the joy in the children being recognized. And I feel like it also encourages their classmates who see them being recognized to maybe think about being more active in their environment. So I really like that one, and I'm really excited about the community center. Those would probably be my top two, but I really do love all the programs that we do, so it's really hard for me to try to even narrow it down.
No problem. I understand. And I don't want you to have they'll be like, they're their favorite. I guess the other thing, because you do have a background with working with young people. Now, I hear all different perspectives out on the streets about where are youth and young people going, and their mindset. And I think in every generation, because especially as we're older, we have a different perspective because we grew up or we're children in a different time period. So there's always the kids nowadays kind of saying, right? But one of the big sentiments is that there has been a big thing of either that the youth are in this doomsday feeling, or they are lost, or they have, they're a mix of technology, half human, half technology. I guess, what have you seen, I guess, from your perspective, because you are working with young people, and I guess, give us some hope, I guess.
I've seen both. I've seen the younger kids, and this includes a high school. I just worked with a high school, and we planted a whole bunch of trees for Earth Day, and they were engaged and involved and happy to be there. And it was a beautiful thing to see, these 16, 17, 18-year-olds that were really excited to learn how to properly plant trees and learn about conservation, and not just forced to be there. They actually chose to be there. So it's really nice to see that. And I'm lucky enough to be an aunt to many, many children. And a lot of them, when encouraged, want to do good. They want to be positive. They want to be a defender of good and a voice for those who are voiceless. I think it's just a matter of them having the proper examples to see, one, that it's possible. Because I think with social media, a lot of the things they see is just the noise gets the attention, and they're already getting kind of, again, that emotional fatigue by seeing so much problems, them just being on TikTok or Facebook or Instagram. They're going to see those same really loud, aggressive individuals who are putting a lot of problems out there for them to see. So I think just they're getting overwhelmed at a young age very quickly. So it's kind of up to all of us adults, I'm not a parent, like I said, I'm an aunt, but it's even up to me to be an example of, hey, I know there's a lot going on, but you have so much power in you to change things and be a good person and do good things, and that it's not going to stop you from having fun. It's not going to, doesn't mean you can't be goofy or get into a little trouble. We all get into a little trouble, of course, but you still on a regular basis can be this superhero in a sense for helping others and for doing little things, rather than stepping over that piece of trash, just picking it up and putting it in the trash can. That's something little things like that go a real long way. But I think that we need to remind them of those things, and that's kind of up to us as adults to be at the forefront of giving these examples of the fact that we all have a lot going on, but we still are capable of making our communities a little better.
So I would say that you would that right now the big thing that's missing from, I guess, the adults to the youth is guidance.
Absolutely, yes.
And I guess as adults, we're failing them, I guess, for a few different reasons. I think a lot of us are dizzy. And what I mean by that is there's so much also coming from us, especially depending on, your age. You have a I guess I could say, convergence of periods in time. And what I mean by that, this technological period, but then you're still, at least for me, and I could be just speaking, you still have the nostalgia for the old way, and you're trying to old way of life before we had, social media, a bunch of emails, and so you're trying to see how can you make both of those worlds still exist. And so I think, that's for me, at least why sometimes I struggle to be, thinking all the time about, I just have a toddler, so they're not doing complicated things yet. We're just still worrying about like finger paint, but just, but I see it in myself in that you're trying to make both of these worlds that, exist together, and I'm not sure if they can all the time. That's how I feel.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, even seeing it, my two of my closest nieces that I am to, they're not super old, they're not even teenagers yet. And you still kind of compete with a lot of what they're seeing on all the social media. And then you have to kind of get clever to engage them or to get them to be curious about certain things. But I think it's just a matter of how much do you want to encourage it? How much do you want to really show them just on a daily basis the little everyday things that you could do and make a game of it? Every kid loves a game. So I like to just make a game of it.
Now, I'm going to switch the conversation a little bit because I want to get back to a little bit of the your organization. I know it's a big jump from going from us speaking from youth and what the youth perspective, but then in a way it isn't, because I want to talk about the fact that your organization honors people who are champions. And I always think of champions as, heroes that, not only adults, but children look up to as well. And so in being involved in picking out the different champions that you guys honor each year, and these are usually athletes that are, doing great things in the community, I guess first let's talk about why. I guess, how did it come to be that you decided to pick athletes, to honor in communities? How did that come about?
Our family actually used to be owners of an arena football team. So we started out tiny Wilkes-Barre Scranton Pioneers indoor football team. And then from there, the Philadelphia Soul arena football team. My dad is a big football guy. And over the course of doing that, he just got more and more engaged with different athletes and even a few people who work for the Eagles. And he met Lee Steinberg, who is a famous sports agent, and he does a Super Bowl party every year. And they got together and said, wouldn't it be cool to recognize some of these players that are really doing awesome things and unique things and different things in their communities. And they both kind of got together and thought it was a great idea. So this award actually started way before my time, and it's continued to evolve to not just the athletes, but coaches, members of their offices and staffers. So it's not just the players, it's really just people in the NFL world that started foundations or charities or who are just very active in their communities. And it's a great thing to be a part of because, again, it's always encouraging even the athletes that are coming into the draft class of, hey, a lot of these professional players are very active in giving back to their community. So again, it's that like encouraging the next generation to think about that as they move on with their careers.
Now, in your eyes, what makes a humanitarian champion? Like, what would you say are your 3 top things that you're like, that makes somebody a humanitarian champion?
Somebody who is approachable and listens to the problems around them, not just their perspectives on the problem, but actually listen to the community's needs and somebody who doesn't stop. I think a lot of the times, we get drained and we'll be like, this is just too much, and we'll step away. And members of the community that believe in the sustainability of whatever it is that they're doing, that they're not just, like you said earlier, throwing money at a problem and walking away, but really actively being a part of it and trying to find a sustainable solution to what the issue is.
Yes, and I think that's the hard part now, because and why I mean that's the hard part, not only because you have to stick it out for the work, but then there's so many things nowadays that come at you, different people, different perspectives, and especially if you are a known athlete, maybe you have so many opinions, like it's hard, as they say, to make everyone happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
You might be like, well, I'm doing good, but they're like, it's not good enough. And you're like, well, what are you doing?
Yes. Yes.
And so that leads me to the question, because, there are so many issues and problems and all these different things that are coming at, people when it comes to, being a giver, right? It makes me think actually of the statement, there's, givers and takers, right? And so, and what I mean by that is that, as a giver, you attract people who are sometimes, not always on the same trajectory, or, or thinking in ways that you're like, well, that's not really going to be helpful. I guess, how do you, stay strong in the philanthropy space? And what I mean by that is, like, when you have people that may latch on for not the same giving reasons, they're not necessarily givers. How do you stay, I guess, mentally strong and stay focused on your mission?
That is a really good question, because that does happen. That, especially when you're out there making moves and getting involved with all types of different things, people do kind of get attracted and kind of want to be a part of it. But one of the things that I learned along the way is finding those 2, 3, we're lucky enough to have managed to get 4 passions. So those are the 4 things that I stick to, which is like we said, the conservation, the humanitarian recognition, world health, and the diplomacy. So if somebody's trying to pull me away from those passions, I know that I can't do it. Like I could, but I need to focus on the things that I am passionate about, so you don't burn out. So I think the hardest thing for people to say in charity and philanthropy is no. But I think we have to know when to say no. With the understanding of, I need to stick to my guns. I need to stick to what I know and what feeds my soul in helping other people, because that prevents that burnout. And I think it's also just not engaging with individuals that aren't there for the same reasons you're there. I think sticking with like minds and people with the same kind of mission as you, who really become your core group and network, is really important. And kind of the other people that might come around, acknowledging and seeing if they want to be with you on your journey. And if it doesn't align, again, just kind of going back to that, I'm sorry, it doesn't align, and that learning the no. And I still struggle with that, honestly, to this day. I absolutely hate saying no to anyone. But I also am realistic in the sense that I only have so much time. I only have so many things that I can effectively have a hand in change. So I would say that that's a very tough thing to do, but really important for your own sanity and impact.
Yes, it's hard. Yeah, I have this. Yeah, it's hard to say no for a lot of things, because you don't.
Yes.
what I've found sometimes, and I'm sure you've experienced this too, if you do the no, you have sometimes people who turn and say, but how is this giving? And how is this, and you're like, what? You're, it's the tables sometimes get turned on you, but then you're like, well, we can't do everything. So I like the fact that you stick to your 4 core values. And if it isn't in those 4 core values, then, it allows you to have, a foundation or a grounding on why you're saying no. So I think that is a great tip, is that everybody should have just like a written set of values. Like this is what we do and why we do it. And, we have to stick to this. And so when you have somebody that comes to you and, wants to, propose something with outside of those values, although it may sound wonderful, you've got to be able to manage your time, energy, and your own efforts. So that's an excellent tip. And so now I have one last question for you. If you could only fix one problem on the planet, what would it be?
I would say closed-mindedness. Again, it goes back to, I think that a lot of the issues that we face locally and globally have to do with the fact that we get very stuck in the way we view a problem. And that if we would just spend a little time really listening to one another on what the issues are and ways to solve them and coming together, we could resolve a lot more problems. But I think it's that kind of rigid, my perspective is the right perspective, or the way I live my life is the right way. I think that that's where we continue to kind of repeat problems, and we don't get out of a lot of situations with that rigidness. So I would just honestly love to teach the world that an open mind is limitless possibilities in resolving a lot of issues that might not just be yours, but your neighbors or somebody you care about.
I like it. Open-mindedness. I think it is the problem that we definitely need to solve right now and where we're going. Thank you, Morgan, for your time and insight. To learn more about Morgan DeNicola, go to DeNicolaFamilyFoundation.org. If you have a passion for an unserved community, a social justice problem, or want to change minds, contact Project Good Work at projectgood.work to start your project of change today. Subscribe to our mailing list at projectgood.work/subscribe to get our episodes and blog articles sent to you each month. To our listeners, thanks for tuning in to Project Good, where we're focused on what matters.